Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the K and Isaac. The K and Isaac.
Is that my name?
The K and Isaac podcast.
Yes. Welcome.
Starring your host, K and Isaac.
I'm the last one.
We got a sports podcast coming up today, so if you're a sports fanatic, stick around. Should be very interesting. You got a couple of topics you want to start us off with, huh?
Well, by far the most important thing that happened probably in the past several weeks.
Oh, several weeks.
Yep. And it happened this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Is John Cena won the WWE Championship.
Wait,
he got it back.
Wasn't John Cena supposed to retire?
This is his last year.
Oh, so he has a whole year. He announced his retirement a year in advance.
Last year.
So it's kind of like the last ride.
Tour, yeah, basically.
Kind of like what Kobe did.
So every stop that he has a brand new shirt that says, "This is the last time," or something like that. But let me just say a couple things, because all of you have probably, you've already reached for the shut-off button after I said something like that. But let me explain a couple things. First of all, I understand WWE is a scripted deal. Clearly it's not real, but I will tell you this. I've gotten back into it a little bit when they got back on Netflix. So Raw's on Netflix, plays every Monday night. It's tonight. And I will tell you, it's entertainment. Okay, so there's there's cheesy parts. Yes, there's things that are like, but these guys and gals, both of them, are legit people who like literally risk their bodies as they go out and do stuff. So people were flying through tables and chairs and the metal steel steps they're throwing out. I mean, they're doing things that are going to physically disrupt their bodies. And if you see any of these older wrestlers, you can clearly tell that it took a toll on their body as they're getting older. So yes, I understand it's scripted and many people aren't into it as much as maybe they used to be, but it was 125,000 people went over the past 2 days in Las Vegas, like physically went in the stadiums. And it was just overall, it wasn't the best WrestleMania by any means, but it was entertaining enough to be like, yeah, I mean, I was glad that I watched. But John Cena, just to put it in perspective, he was tied with Ric Flair for 16 championships of all time, and that was the leading number. And with him winning, now he's the leading GOAT, as they would say, as far as championships. So he has 17 total. So again, I understand that's scripted.
Yeah, 100% scripted. Like, we're going to make you the golden boy. Guess what record you're going to break this year?
Yeah, but it was entertaining. It's fun to watch. He's been the golden boy of the league for a long time, and he kind of turned heel, and I think it was an interesting story. The interesting part was the guy that made him turn heel was The Rock, and he made no appearance at WrestleMania.
What? Rock wasn't there?
Neither day. So
dude, that's like your bloodline.
Yeah,
like that's who people tune in to see.
But Travis Scott made an appearance because his song's been like the theme for the past whatever, and he was there when Cena turned heel. But and he messed up the whole. I don't know. Go back and watch it, I guess. But he messed up the whole thing and made it so Cena could win, pretty much.
Oh, like scripted wise, they inserted him in there.
He came walking out during the middle of the match.
Distracted him.
Distracted Cody Rhodes.
That's the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this. You don't have to say the top. I want your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, but not like. It doesn't have to be what you would consider to be the best, but maybe who are your favorite.
My favorites.
You can put it that way.
Okay.
Yep.
So first off, this is my opinion on the WWE, right? I used to watch growing up as a kid, probably stopped watching around like high school age. And so during that time, like I got to watch the end of kind of like The Rock, like when he just started getting into movies and stuff. I was kind of there with it, and I got like a touch of Goldberg and like DX and stuff. I've seen like DX revivals with Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
Yeah.
But like that was kind of my era. It was like Batista and Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, Edge. Like those are the people that I watched. And so going back from that night, I remember like I used to have the wrestling toys and stuff. Me and my dad used to watch it all the time. Like I was actually watching WWE enough to be like, okay, back then I feel like there was a lot more wrestling. There was a lot more unique kind of like not interviews, but like off the mat type of interactions that you would have with people, like, you know, raising the drama, creating the feud, stuff like that. Like The Rock was great on the mic. And so there was a lot of like betrayals left and right, which I know that's still a common theme today. But I feel like, you know, I haven't watched enough of this era. I sat down and I watched like a couple of episodes maybe in the past like 5 years. And so I don't know a lot about it, but I will say I do feel like there's a lot more talking. I feel like back in the day too, like obviously it was still fake, it was still scripted, but it was fake in the sense that when someone punched you, they kind of pulled a little bit off of it, but it was still connecting to your face. And, you know, it still would probably hurt a lot more. You know, like Big Show, whenever he'd slap people across the chest, like that's a real slap. I feel like whenever I was watching today, and not necessarily for a slap's sake, like they probably still do that, but there's a lot of times where I can like clearly see whenever someone, you know, jumps from the top rope and lands on them, like they're cradling themselves to make sure nobody gets hurt. Yeah. Whenever people jump off.
You know to watch that stuff now. Like when you're a kid, like you don't know to even like look for the fakeness in it. But now it's like your eyes are more open to.
I mean, I knew wrestling was fake. I knew wrestling. That's the thing. Like I know now how fake it is. The same as when I was growing up, I still knew it was fake. Like that's how my dad explained it to me whenever we were watching it. Because I also watched UFC, and so I was like, "That's the fake stuff." Chuck Liddell knocking someone unconscious is the real stuff.
That's the real stuff, right?
But today, you know, like if someone is about to heel kick you in the face or whatever, like you can see it's aimed towards the chest, but they still act as if it hit them right across the jaw. And like it's just little things like that. And maybe I do notice more nowadays, who knows, but I feel like that's more abundant, them like taking care of each other. I feel like back in the day it was like, all right, you ready to take this beating for the entertainment of other people? Like I'm not going to literally break your neck, but you're going to leave with some bruises, some scars, some of your real blood is going to be dripped.
That still happens every once in a while. But like you said, it's not as often.
Yeah. Well, that... And then the storylines themselves, I find a little bit dull, a little bit more boring nowadays. Maybe because I was a kid, I was more entertained. That one I can definitely mark up to age. I'm just not interested nowadays. Yep. So getting into the question you asked me, my Mount Rushmore. With that being said, The Rock has to be up there.
That's one.
Yeah. Number two, I was a huge fan of Rey Mysterio.
Okay.
Yep.
He's still wrestling, surprisingly.
Yeah, well, I'm not.
His son's in the league now.
I'm not interested anymore. But he was very entertaining back in the day, and I remember the whole like him against Batista. They were tag teammates, right? And then Batista betrayed him and started just beating the crap. And Batista's like this 6'5", like 300-pound muscle giant. Rey Mysterio was this little itty bitty guy.
Also went to the movies. He went that route.
Yep. But I just remember back in the day, like, watching him beat the crap out of Rey Mysterio, and I was like, I don't care how fake this is, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
Like, there was one specific time I remember where Rey Mysterio was strapped to a stretcher, and Dave Batista picked up the stretcher and just flung it against the side railing, and Rey Mysterio lands flat on his head.
There's no way that can hurt.
Dude, how is his skull not crushed in right now? That is ridiculous. But anyways... Yeah, Rey Mysterio has to be up there. Let's see.
His son just won, I think it was the Intercontinental Championship. That's what he won last night.
Okay. After that, I would probably give it to I liked RKO. I liked Randy Orton.
He wrestled last night for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I liked him back in the heyday.
He's getting a little old, so he can't do what he used to. But yeah, he was... entertaining. For
Like
sure.
whenever he first started coming out with that like heel kick to the head, and like when he'd get on the ground and be like pulsating, spitting all over the place, and you see the veins popping from his head, I was like, damn, this dude's pretty serious. Whoa, calm down, bud. And
That's three.
That's three. I need one more. I gotta
Got The
make
Rock,
this a good
Rey
one.
Mysterio, Randy Orton. Who's your fourth?
Okay, I'm gonna give like an honorable mention just because I can't. Actually, three honorable mentions just because I can't decide between them. Okay,
Just pick one.
so the fourth one I'm gonna give to Triple H,
Okay.
but
Great.
Batista has to be up there. Undertaker has to be up there. Shawn Michaels has to be up there.
Okay.
Those all three were greats.
All right.
So that's my list there. I'd put Batista in there though, just because he was terrifying.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
Very big dude. My list. So Hulk Hogan. Simply because he like changed the whole sport and made everybody interested in watching it as a worldwide phenomenal person. And then he made a switch from WWF at the time, went over to WCW, made a heel turn, turned the NWO. That was his thing. Him and Razor Ramon and Kevin Nash were the ones that made all that kind of happen. And when I was in middle school, high school, that exploded. Like even elementary school, when that happened, like everybody had NWO shirts on. They were all everything. So Hulk Hogan for sure. I loved watching Sting. I think he was just a very acrobatic person. Like he just was very much into it, and I liked when he turned into the Crow kind of character, where he was white with the black, and he just kind of went very mysterious at the time. And he did that. Like I was thinking about this: if Hulk Hogan did the NWO thing, if it wasn't for Sting, that thing probably wouldn't have worked. Because you needed an antagonist. You needed somebody who was like fighting for WCW at the time. And so he was the one that was kind of in the back end, and then he came in and was like, oh no, I'm going to take this thing over. And made it very interesting.
Sting, only time I've ever seen Sting was like him super old, barely able to move. And I've seen like the old clips. I find them very funny when someone's wearing like a Sting mask and you see it's a mask, but then he pulls off the mask and it's actually still the same paint and it's actually Sting.
Same him. Yep.
I always found that funny.
Well, he made a return a little bit at the it was WWE, and he wrestled Triple H. Remember that at WrestleMania? I think we watched that one. But he was, it was old, and he ended up losing, I think. But so those two for sure. You mentioned Undertaker. Undertaker, I just like him because he's very, he was a huge, and he was a great fighter, and he had always the cool walkouts, the screen, the whole stadium goes black, and then nobody knows exactly where he's at. So those three for sure. I think you could have a toss-up of people that I enjoyed watching. I didn't get to see a lot of the Ultimate Warrior, but he was a cool character and was very energetic.
Yeah, I used to have his toy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he looked cool. He was ripped, and he was just crazy in the ring, just all over the place. So he was pretty fun to watch. So those would probably be my top four. But
I just remembered one.
Which one?
I gotta take out Dave Batista.
Okay.
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy. Yeah, the Hardy brothers.
Jeff Hardy was my boy.
Yep, they were crazy. Yeah. They were ones that were willing to, like you said, and we've spent now 15 minutes talking about WWE.
I know. This was supposed to be a quick little segment, Isaac.
But the thing is, just a quick reminder, these people are putting their bodies on the line, and the Hardy Boys were definitely those, to where they didn't care. They were just willing to do whatever it took to entertain the audience, and you hope they got paid enough to then try to recover years later.
Jesus. Yeah, man. Them and the Dudley brothers. Is that what, Dudley brothers?
Dudley? Yeah.
Douglas? Or
were they the
like
ones that dressed in camo?
Yeah.
I think it's Dudley.
They were the best tag teams. Yeah. Okay, that's it for WWE there. All right. So
let's get into... we definitely need to talk about... Obviously, when we get into the NBA playoffs, I do want to briefly mention... Even for our golf fans, real quick, because I know you're not a fan. I can't really even stand to watch it, but I did watch the very end of the Masters. Rory finally got his Masters championship. He's been trying for years and years and years.
He has.
And then he got down to here's the thing. This is what tells you that when you get stuck in your own head, and this is for any athlete, that something like this can happen to where then you overthink what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it always reminds me, it goes back to when Kobe Bryant was sitting on the sideline and Chris Rock was like 2 seats away from him and trying to talk to Kobe. And Kobe wasn't flinching one bit. I mean, he was focused on that court. He was in the game. And there's even players that, like, when they say they get onto, like, the baseball field, they're so focused on what's going on in the field, they don't even really notice that there's an audience around them. Like, they don't let that play or factor into it. Because if you're the Boston Red Sox and you go play at the Yankee Stadium, you guarantee that those audience members are going to be yelling things at those Red Sox players as they're out in the outfield. You can't stop them from saying anything, and they're probably all drunk out of their minds, so they're probably saying whatever they want. Rory has about a 5-foot putt to win the championship on the 18th hole. All he has to do is knock it down. You could hit it, and you don't even play golf.
Debatable.
It's debatable, yes. But he got in his head, he missed it. So everybody thought, well, this might be it. Like, he might not play. So they had to do a playoff hole with this guy named Rose, and they had to do another hole, and he ended up winning that specific hole to win the championship.
So he almost blew it.
Almost blew it again. So he was up by a lot of strokes, too, during that last round, and ended up pulling it off. But I think just as an athlete, you understand what pressure is like. When you finally get that chance to get that monkey off your back, and you're like, all right, I gotta get this championship, or I gotta beat this team, or I have to beat this fighter, whatever it is. And you're so close that sometimes people tend to completely overthink it, and they end up costing them, the championship, or in this case would have been a lot of money. Yeah. A lot of money. So that's just throwing it out there. That would probably be the only golf I watched for the rest of the entire season. But it's the way to start off the season, so that's why they make such a big deal out of the Masters.
There's seasons in golf?
Yeah, well, they don't play all year round, I don't think. Like PGA Tour starts, and then it goes until, I think, till the fall, probably. Like I said, I don't know much about it. I don't watch it, but Masters, I think, is what always starts it off to get the season going. Yeah, the only golfer I can name is Tiger Woods. Yeah, and he's been injured again, so I don't even think he's playing. How do you get injured in golf? He's always had back problems. Problems? He's had a lot of back surgeries. From golf? Yeah, well, you're twisting your body constantly. I mean, if you do that enough times, you're going to cause some injuries. It's the same thing with just a pitcher who injures their arm. You're constantly using that arm and your shoulder. You're gonna but that's different, though. The velocity from throwing. I feel like two-hand swing. I mean, have you seen how quick they go through, though? No, I haven't. I don't watch golf. Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's not like it's just a casual come through. I mean, you're moving your whole body. I mean, and that's on every swing. So you gotta I am very ignorant on this matter. I mean, the most experience I have with golf is the Wii remote. The Wii remote, You've never done putt swing through? Yeah. I don't know if that's the same though. Well, it's not the same, but it's still because with putt I can use one hand and just tap it. We need to go to like Top Golf or something. I would love to see you try to swing a golf club. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you, though. Thank you. It's one of the hardest sports, most considered probably the hardest sport in the game, or ever, just because you're hitting this little ball into this little cup, and you're talking like 500 feet away. It's like, if you don't hit it right, it goes this way, or it goes this way. It's terrible. Robin Williams' joke is that game was invented by a drunk man. I believe it. Yeah, well, so I'm good for him. The whole point is good for him. Yeah, congrats to Rory. You said his name was Rory McIlroy. Yeah, congrats, Macaroni. Yep. All right, let's get into NFL real quick. Yeah. Right before we get into the NBA. NBA is going to be the big segment, but there's a couple of things that I want to talk about when it comes to the NFL. The draft's right on the horizon. It's on Thursday. Everyone's final mock drafts are in. They're pretty much getting a good idea of what they think teams are going to do. Obviously, something always happens every year that kind of throws everyone for a loop. Well, let me ask you this question. Do you see anything major, like some big adjustment that a team does or a big trade for this specific draft?
I could see. Well, first off, the draft projections for Shedeur Sanders has been dropping, and like the best option for him at the moment, what it's looking like, is the Giants at 3 still. But they're saying they don't think that the Giants are going to go with him when that pass rusher from Penn State is still on the board. They can't justify that because that's like a Micah part. Like basically bringing in Shedeur Sanders' height isn't even at the level of like what Justin Fields was or Caleb Williams or any of these people that were picked very high. But taking him 3rd is basically saying like he's on the same level of them. While this other dude's like on the same level of Micah Parsons, apparently. And Micah Parsons, his first year in the league, was an immediate disruptor. So there's a lot of people saying they don't think that the Giants are going to grab Shedeur Sanders. They're going to go with the pass rusher.
Well, I don't understand why they would after they just made all of these adjustments. I mean, who did they just pick up at the quarterback?
Well, they picked up 2 veterans. They got Russell Wilson. They got Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Neither of them, I don't think they're expecting to be around more than a year or 2.
Yeah.
So they're probably thinking for their future's sake, probably something that the Steelers should have done last year.
But that also throws Sanders at potentially being a 3rd-string quarterback.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
to start off his career.
I'm not saying he would be a problem, but he might be a problem if he realizes he's a 3rd-string quarterback, and we know he has a massive ego.
That could be part of it.
So I wouldn't do it if I were the Giants.
Yeah. Well, after that, the next case, right, is Shedeur Sanders going, I believe, 9th to the Saints, which the Saints have Derek Carr over there. Yeah. But apparently Derek Carr has sustained some injury that they think's going to be following him into next season. And so a lot of people...
How old is Derek Carr? Do you know?
About 35.
So he doesn't have much longer either.
Nope. He's towards the end of his career. So they think that, the Saints are going to get Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders would basically start this year. But then the question is, when Derek Carr gets back, like, are you officially moving on from him if you're letting Shedeur Sanders start? So
just depends on how well he does.
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting situation happening over there. Now, my hope, when we start talking about trades, right, I hope that the Steelers, for the first time in their franchise's history, decide to actually trade up in the draft.
They're not going to do it.
Probably not, no.
They're not going to do it.
But I hope if they see Shedeur Sanders sitting around at like 8, they try to undercut the Saints, give up their first pick, maybe give up some money or a player or something, some wide receiver, maybe Skoranek or Calvin Austin or somebody like that, since we just packed in that wide receiver room. And I hope they trade up to try and get Shedeur Sanders because we need a quarterback. But
the challenge, though, is it could work. I just don't. The Steelers don't have a second-round pick. I'm pretty sure that they do not. So that would be like if they're going to make a move, they need to make a move because they're not getting anything in the second round.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, we gave up our second-round pick to get DK Metcalf. We'll still have 3rd, though. The thing about this draft is it is pretty packed. You can find sleepers even in the 4th and 5th round this year.
Yeah.
So who knows? We'll see. But, yes, we don't have a second-round pick. And so with our first-round pick, if we do not get a quarterback, I'm not so sure. The only quarterback that I could see falling back, but I'm not sure if it's going to be falling back to the 3rd round, is Jalen Monroe. And he's out of Alabama. He's a great quarterback. He runs. He's a runner, basically. He's like another Justin Fields coming out of Ohio State. But he's the best other option I can see. You also have Jackson Dort. Now, when it comes to the Steelers, obviously that's what I'm focused on, is what the Steelers are going to be doing in the draft. If Jackson Dort can fall back, and he's the quarterback at Ole Miss, pretty good quarterback. I mean, he's in the SEC, so Ole Miss wasn't able to hang this year because the SEC was packed. And so there was some games where he didn't look his best, his team didn't look the best, and that's why there's a lot of doubt behind him. But I think if you're drafting a quarterback, or really any position, to be quite frank. You want to look at positions that are people that are coming out of the SEC or the Big Ten, or, I mean, somewhat the ACC, somewhat, the Big 12. I'm probably missing one, the SEC. I think I already said the SEC, because that's where Bama, that's where Ole Miss, obviously. That a lot of heavyweight teams, Georgia. That's where a lot of the heavyweight teams are. So I'd want a player out of there because you're already basically going up against NFL talent, or at least people you're going to see when you're a rookie. They're going to be on the teams across the line too as another rookie. So I wouldn't mind if Jackson Dort were to drop to us at our original spot. I wouldn't trade up to get Jackson Dort. But if he were to fall back at 21, then I'm okay with that too. I've seen some projections that a cornerback out of Michigan, I think his name's Will something. I forget his last name. Johnson, I think. Maybe Will Johnson. But he's like the best corner in the draft. And he's projected to be falling around 22, 23. I think our cornerback spot, even though we just picked up Darius Slay and then we have Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay is like 31 years old. So I wouldn't mind getting another real lockdown corner to complement Joey Porter Jr., and we start the new phase because our defense is pretty old. We have TJ Watt is like 30, Cam Hayward's obviously like 36 or something like that, and then Fitzpatrick is like 29. Like, he's getting up there too. So we need to start this new phase of developing young talent on our defense and try to revitalize that. So if Jackson Dort's not there and there's no opportunity to get Shedeur Sanders, I hope we go cornerback in this draft. If not cornerback, maybe D-line, because we do have some spots to fill there too. I don't know enough about the D-linemen in the draft to be able to say which one we should get. But if a number 1 corner is sitting there versus a number 3 or number 4 D-lineman, I'd probably take the number 1 corner just based off of raw talent. So that's my analysis of the draft. That was the one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Aaron Rodgers. And so if we have a good idea, which I just found this out watching the Pat McAfee show, Aaron Rodgers came on, he was talking. Basically, he's been radio silent because he has personal things going on in his life. As far as, I don't know what I can speculate as much as I want. To me, it could be a situation where like a best friend of his or a family member of his like got diagnosed with cancer or something and is going through chemo. But it's like a serious situation, as so he made it seem, as something like that, where he needs to step away, just be there for this person during all this time. And so when he says stuff like that, I do think to myself, the Steelers and Mike Tomlin are definitely an organization that would be like, football is just football. You go handle whatever personal stuff you need to do. Let us know on your convenience, on your time. It won't matter. Now, yes, it's a business, and I think what the Steelers will do is still act accordingly and like draft a younger quarterback or do something in the free agent, or maybe we do decide just to ride it out with Mason Rudolph, but then eventually we're going to give way for Aaron Rodgers to come back whenever he wants. And I think that's what's going to happen. I do believe that eventually Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback for the Steelers. But I think it's either going to be he shows up in the middle of OTOs, or maybe he even shows up like in the middle of preseason, and then there's going to be like a couple of weeks latency while he gets up to speed with operations and the playbook and stuff like that, and they start testing him out. And then maybe week 4, week 5 or something like that, he eventually starts playing for the Steelers.
Well, it's either that, because I feel the same way. He's either going to play for the Steelers or he's going to retire. It's one or the other. I don't think he's going anywhere else. I think teams have made it pretty clear that they've already had to make their decision. Kids, and listen, I understand going through stuff, dealing with family situations or whatever situation's going on, but every team has to make it. Like, they can't sit there and wait. Like, as much as they want to, they don't have the time, the luxury to be able to do that. Like, they can't wait on somebody who then says, well, I'm just going to retire. And then you've been waiting and building almost your offense around this guy. And nope, they don't have that luxury. So they need to make a decision. So it's nothing against him as an individual. I think they just need to decide, like, hey, like, we have to make a choice for us. So we either are going to draft this specific way, or we're going to go find somebody else that can fill that position, because that's one of the most important positions on the field, and it has to be filled.
And I agree with you, but from that perspective, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the Steelers would be an organization that would say, we are going to prepare as if you're not coming here. And if you come here, then that's great. It's not like how you just painted it of we're creating a game plan and a system around Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers would be stepping into something that Arthur Smith constructed for the whole of the offense. And
I'm not saying that necessarily the Steelers are going to do that. I was just saying a lot of teams
in general, for sure.
They've had to make that choice because they're not willing to take that risk of him not coming.
Yeah.
They have to make that decision. And I'm throwing this out there, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but Tomlin needs to have a really good year this next year or things are going to not go well for him. And that's my opinion, is that he continues to have solid seasons. Yes, he's been over 500 every year he's been there, and he's been in the playoffs, yes. Mm-hmm. But if you're not going to go win championships, they're going to have to go find somebody else to make that happen. And as great of a coach that he is, and I agree with you because I enjoy watching him coach, he has the right demeanor. He reminds me of a Tony Dungy, just a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more in your face with the players. But eventually the fans, maybe, but at least the office administration are going to say, we need to win championships. That's what the Steelers are here for. That's what they're known for, is to win championships. And we haven't had one in how many years now? Although we have great seasons and although we get into playoffs, if we're not producing when we get there, then it's almost as if we never even win.
Yeah. Now, I will say, like any other franchise, that would definitely be the mentality. And they would probably have shipped him off a long time ago already. But let's keep in mind here that it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. We bleed loyalty to a fault at certain points. But with that being said, there's been 3 head coaches of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the current...
Bill Cowher, the one before him?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And he's a great coach.
Yeah. And the one that's currently the head coach does have 2 Super Bowl championships under his belt. And if you were a coach that has once touched a Super Bowl championship...
Is it 2? I thought it was just 1.
No, I'm pretty sure he won one in 2000... No, was that Cowher still in 2006?
Well, I know he got one with Roethlisberger, but that's the only thing.
Or not 2006, 2004?
Does Roethlisberger have 2?
Well, now you got me thinking. No, they've gone to 2 Super Bowls, maybe. And I think that...
I know he lost
because Bill Cowher's last one, I think, was in 2004.
And I think he retired after...
Yeah, that was
he
with the
won
bus.
His last one.
No, that wasn't with the bus. Was that with the bus? You're making me question everything now. It's been so long since I look back in the history of the Steelers because I'm focused on going forward. What are we doing now? What are we fixing? But anyways, man, regardless, the current coach, obviously Mike Tomlin, is unanimously one of the better coaches in the league. And I wouldn't blame a whole operation just on the head coach. I think that he needs to be held a little bit more accountable in fixing some of these problems, or maybe given a little bit more power in order to fix some of these problems if he knows how to fix it. But I mean,
well, the question with him has always been who he surrounds himself with. There's been so many people that he's staffed, who have been on his staff, that everybody would look at and be like, why would you even keep that guy around? Because clearly he's not doing the game plan that you have been laying out.
Loyal to a fault, man. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
but here's the thing, though. Like, you got to recognize, we had a ton of success while Ben Roethlisberger was still our quarterback.
For sure.
And then even towards the last, 2 or 3 years, it started getting a little ugly with Ben Roethlisberger there. But that was kind of a loyalty ride for those 2 or 3 years. That was the coming down of the franchise.
Older, yeah.
And then after that, we have not had a consistent quarterback since then. And so if you're a Mike Tomlin who, doesn't look like he's aged a day since he's been in the league. I mean, he's not old.
Yeah.
He still has a ton of time. He has a great football mind. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers owner and the history that you have, my assumption of what you're going to do is just ride it out through the bad times until we can find that franchise quarterback again. But the thing is, how bad are they, or how hard are they actively seeking that franchise quarterback?
Yeah.
That's what I question.
Yeah.
We haven't drafted a quarterback since Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett was kind of like a forced one because that was just a draft class that wasn't that thick to begin with.
Yeah. It just begins to, we have to belabor the point here, but the question of the move with Justin Fields, why they wouldn't have done something a little bit more long-term with him, considering he had a great beginning to his season.
Yeah.
And Wilson came in and he did well, but then he just kind of fell apart at the end of the season. What would it look like if Fields would have stayed? Could you have built something around him? Evidently, they thought that they couldn't because that's why he ended up moving on. But we clearly know that in the NFL, it is like a needle in a haystack to find a quarterback that's going to be with you long-term for a long period of time and be your franchise guy. There's only been, I mean, you think about over the past 20 years, there's a select set of teams that have actually had that to where players stayed with them. And you could, obviously Brady's one, Manning's one, but even Manning went over to the Broncos. You know, Russell.
Because the Colts kicked him out, though.
Yeah, we had his neck issues. They were concerned about that. Obviously, the luck thing didn't work out there. Russell Wilson, you have Roethlisberger. I mean, you've got some people in there, but when you think about it long term, that's really not that many quarterbacks. I mean, you've got teams that have been looking for quarterbacks for years, thinking they've got Browns are a perfect example. They thought Watson was the guy.
Yeah.
That clearly
Browns are a perfect. I don't know about that, bud. Browns, I don't think, have been confident in a quarterback their entire franchise career.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how hard is it to find somebody that come in and be your franchise quarterback? They have, maybe they've never found it, but there's lots of times that they thought they did, and then it never worked out.
Yeah, I don't think they. I mean, they've drafted the Baker Mayfields and the Johnny Manziels, but I feel like after a season, they were already like, never mind. Never mind. Like, I feel like, okay, tell me something. You're a Colts fan. How long before Peyton Manning found success in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it was, he turned it around the very first year, or the second year.
Turned it around, what does that mean?
So he went 3-13 his first year, and then he went 13-3 his second year. So they did go,
so his very first year, 3-13. Like, that's literally Johnny Manziel with the Browns. That's literally Caleb Williams with the Bears. And so second year, 13-3, you said?
Yep.
Now, playoff berth?
Yes.
And then what happened in the playoffs?
Well, they lost until they got to 2006 is when they won the championship.
Okay, so making it to the playoffs, losing in the playoffs.
I don't know when we signed him on.
Right.
98 maybe.
And so now I take that in terms of like today's day and age. Obviously the Browns don't go there or anything. But like you have a Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow makes it to the playoffs, I think rookie year, right? Makes it to the playoffs. Second year makes it to the Super Bowl. Right, if I'm remembering that correctly.
It was quick, whatever it is. It was quick.
And then after that, it's kind of been downhill from there. Is that a franchise quarterback?
Right.
I mean, he made it to the Super Bowl, got all it, didn't win it, though.
But what we're also seeing, though, is what potentially happens outside of the field. So are they watching? So Manning obviously goes from 3-13, realizes, I got to change my game and I got to do better. So he spends all offseason bettering himself, spending the time watching the film, studying the field, studying his defenses. I mean, that's the only reason he ever really became who he was, because he wanted to put in the work. Are these other players willing to do that? And I'm not saying they're not, and maybe, but are the coaching staff watching, like, this guy's, like, he's coming to the practices, sure, but what's he doing now? What else is he doing?
Well, I'm sure that's something that they evaluate in the drafting process if there's someone they're bringing in.
Well, that could potentially be the reason why Sanders is going so low, is because they haven't been happy with what they've seen.
Yeah, they don't like his answers,
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, that could be a scenario where he takes that as an insult. Why did I drop this low? And immediately turns it around like that. There could be a bunch of different catalysts for why someone would better their career. I mean, the number one thing I just think of, not to switch gears here, but UFC, Charles Oliveira. You've heard of Charles Oliveira, correct?
Oh, yeah.
This dude sucked at the beginning of his career. Was
Brazilian,
getting choked out and knocked out and just giving up in the ring. And then he had a daughter. And all of a sudden, he's like, I'm fighting for her. And becomes the world champion. Beats everybody. Becomes a force in the featherweight division. So, yeah, going back to football terms, there could always be a catalyst that could spring you forward. It just depends on how you're living your life. I don't think in a draft process anyone's ever going to know that. But with like my whole point in this is that I don't think in the moment no one's ever going to be thinking this is our franchise quarterback. This is the dude that's going to last us 12 years, especially if you're a fresh quarterback coming in with the Browns and 2 years into your career, you're having losing record still. I mean, that's the problem with the NFL, in my opinion, when it comes to quarterbacks nowadays. Is there's such quick turnover. They start them early, and then they don't even give them a chance to blossom and to get used to the speed of things. And like 4, 5, 6 years down the line, now all of a sudden they're starting to get it. Things are starting to slow down a little bit. Yeah. All the better quarterbacks that we've had, I mean, there's some like Daniels for Commanders. He's immediately picked up on speed. You know, he picked it up fairly quick. But then you have like Patrick Mahomes, who rode the bench to Alex Smith for a while, and then he comes in and immediately starts finding success. So, I mean, there's just so many variables. I don't think there is a correct route one way or another to be able to decide that. I think the one factor that would at least help things, not hurt things, is loyalty. Which that's why I'm saying if the Steelers can just commit to a guy long term, and, you know, maybe there's some things that they see immediately that would turn them away from him, sure. But if it's like a Mason Rudolph situation where we already had him, and whenever he played, he didn't do like that bad of a job. I mean, he wasn't like starting quarterback worthy, but he was good enough. And we let him go, but now we're like, oh, we're going to bring you back. Like, if you already let him go, you've already said we don't have faith in you as a franchise quarterback. Right. And so, like, they're bringing him in as a backup, literally. Like, we need to be able to commit to someone as a franchise quarterback. And we haven't really done that since Ben Roethlisberger left the team. So I hope we get that in this draft to wrap up that NFL conversation.
We'll see.
Okay, our final topic, obviously, NBA playoffs are on. The games have been pretty fun, interesting so far. There's been some good games for sure.
There's definitely been some good games, but there's definitely been, and we'll see what game twos look like for some of these teams that just got completely destroyed. Because there were several teams that, even if the score was kind of close, that just did not play their best. And I don't know if they're tired. I don't know what the excuses are, but yeah, there was a few teams. I mean,
well, let's go through them.
The whole Thunder game.
Well, yeah, obviously the Thunder put their throat on the Grizzlies' neck, or their foot on the Grizzlies' neck.
51, I think they won by?
Yeah, something like that. It was the highest margin, I think, in NBA history in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so, and the crazy part about that, which I had a parlay on this game, and
yeah, you told me.
Yep, and I had about 6 legs, and about 5 of them hit, but then SGA was supposed to score 20 points like he has done in like every game, like basically the past a million years. And he gets 15 points when his team as a whole scored like 140 or something like that.
130 something, which is so strange. That's
ridiculous.
So,
so yeah, that game, I think that was supposed to happen. I mean, that doesn't really shock me.
Morant said right afterwards, like, that's the worst game we've ever played, and we'll never play that bad again. So we'll see. I mean,
yeah, maybe not that bad. You're still going to get demolished. I mean, it's the Thunder. They're rolling into the playoffs hot because they finished the regular season pretty strong. They're coming off a good amount of rest.
A little bit of rest, yeah.
And the Grizzlies are coming back from 2 grueling play-in games.
Yeah,
like both of them were pretty. I mean, they kind of beat up on the Mavs a little bit. But
still, you're still
Thunder
playing
is supposed to do that. Yeah. Thunder were supposed to do that. What's another one that was close to you? Or that, they didn't play too well?
Well, the Pacers and Bucks game, Pacers were up by 28 at one point. Now, clearly Lillard is out. They don't know when he's coming back. They said maybe game 2, which would be tomorrow night, or potentially game 3. My guess is he's going to wait till game 3 when it's back in Milwaukee and he can get healthy and back. But you also don't know how well he's going to play. I mean, I think you had a blood clot in your leg. You had to get that fixed, remove blood thinners, all that stuff. I'm assuming he's still on blood thinners, and that definitely affects the way that your blood flows. So what's that going to look like? Is he going to feel like he's going to be able to play 30, 40 minutes? I don't know. I mean, that's it. But it was very clear, I think, that it was the Pacers against Antetokounmpo. I mean, he was... Here's the thing. I don't want to go back to the hack-a-shack thing because it didn't really work when Larry Bird put all that together when we were playing the Lakers. But Antetokounmpo, when they were fouling him and he was shooting free throws, he's like a 60% three-point or free throw shooter. That might be the way to go, and to at least not give him good shots. Because, I mean, once he gets underneath, we don't have a person that can stop him. I mean, even Turner, who's as great of a defender and great of a blocker, there's no way that he can even put enough body on him without fouling him anyway. So why not just foul him and let him shoot those free throws and miss 40% of the time? He's not going to score as much. But overall, I mean, the Pacers played really well. They were hitting well. It did get back down from a 28 lead to like a 12-point lead, so they did cool off quite a bit. But this might be the second year in a row, I think fourth overall, that we bounced the Bucks from the playoffs.
Yeah, we are the Bucks kryptonite, it seems, but they do have injury issues.
Again,
I will say...
Again, they did last year too.
Yeah, I will say when it comes to the Bucks, first off, you got rid of Chris Middleton, who was your golden boy next to Antetokounmpo before Damian Lillard got there. Mm-hmm. You know, they had Drew Holiday too whenever they went on their run, and he was a big part of that. But really, it was Chris Middleton and Giannis. And they got rid of him to bring in Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards. And
he did nothing.
I think that was a very lopsided trade, not in favor of Milwaukee. And so when it comes to not having Damian Lillard, I think that Giannis is going to have to just take over. The Pacers are a team that is stacked whenever it comes to the depth. And they didn't have Ben Mathurin last year. This year they do have him. This is his playoffs, debut basically. And I don't think he's going to, turn into like Anthony Edwards or anything. He's not going to start putting up 30-point, 40-point games because I think that there's just too many mouths to feed with the Pacers to where if we're playing good winning basketball, that means multiple people are getting 20 points. Yep. It's not going to be one person going off getting 30 or 40 or whatever. But the addition to him with the Pacers this year, I think, is going to make a huge difference, especially when you inevitably have that 1 or 2 games where maybe Tyrese Halliburton has to sit down or Pascal Siakam has to sit down. Maybe Miles Turner has to sit down. When it comes to the bench scoring, Ben Mathurin coming off of the bench and Obi Toppin coming off of the bench, those are 2 huge ones, and TJ McConnell coming off of the bench.
Awesome.
I mean, those are the big 3 right there.
Now, Mathurin needs to do 2 things really well because he didn't do them very well in the first game. And it's his first playoff game, so I mean, you got to give him a little bit of slack, I think, with this one. But the first thing is he needs to take good shots when it's necessary to take good shots. That was part of the problem was when the Bucks started to come back, is the Pacers would just go down. They weren't trying to set anything up. They just started launching threes. When you start doing that and you're not hitting those shots, and Mathurin was part of their problem, he was just launching stuff that wasn't even necessary. Like, set something up, keep with your same strategy, and go in and score. And the second thing, he needs to take care of the ball. There's multiple turnovers that he gave up that, again, gives easy points. It's easy points for the Bucks. You just got to take care of the ball, which, granted, that's everybody has to do that. Yeah. But it's noticed with him, there was a couple key moments where Bucks started getting on a run, and then he gives the ball up, and it's like, okay, that just continues to fuel that fire, and you could have easily seen the Bucks get back in that game and potentially take game 1. You can't be up by 28. And
I don't know if I would have seen that happening.
It was possible. I mean, I'm telling you that the Pacers were just struggling with scoring, which sometimes happens with any team. And then again, if you don't take care of that ball, you give easy opportunities for the other team to get back in it.
I watched the game too, though. And towards the end of that fourth quarter, Pacers are good at closing out, if it's one thing. And I think once they finally put back in that starting 5, because whenever Mathurin was on the court and things started going downhill, like, that was their bench unit, basically.
Yeah,
that was
he didn't start.
No.
He's kind of your 6th man, I think.
Yeah, and so whenever you put back Halliburton and then you get Neesmith in there, who's great defensively. He starts stirring things up on the defensive side. Pascal and Miles Turner. And then Nembhard, who's also a great defender. I think that first starting unit for the Pacers is good at getting stops. And then when you have Halliburton on the court and you can get a stop, they immediately get out in transition. Now you have probably the best passer in the NBA in a fast break situation with 5 people who can run the floor pretty much. And Miles Turner can't run the floor as much, but if he trails, he can stop at the 3-point line, and you have to respect him with his 3-point shot.
Right.
So I would have had faith that they would have been able to finish the Bucks, especially a Bucks without Damian Lillard, because towards the ending stretch, who's the big shot maker you have? Giannis, and he's shooting twos, and if you foul him and hack him and deny him, then you're going to rely on him making free throws to crawl back in the game.
Yep. Yeah. I really hope, for the Pacers' sake, that Lillard holds off for one more game so we can get up 2 games
I think
into Milwaukee. But
I honestly think even when Dame Lillard comes back, it'll be more competitive than it was for sure, but I still think the Pacers maybe get him in like a 5-game. Yeah. They might win 1 back in Milwaukee, and then when it comes back over, we'll finish the deal.
Well, like I said, you still got to wonder how Lillard's even going to play when he does come back, because you don't know what kind of condition he's going to be in. That's a hard thing to recover from. Yeah,
but whenever it comes to the NBA, man, as much as they're paying these people, they're not going to put him back on the court unless they can give at least their 100%. They may not feel 100%.
But he might give it. But it might be for 30 minutes instead of that extra 10 that they might need.
Maybe.
And that might be the difference right there.
Could, yeah. So any other games that specifically we want to talk about? We'll go through and look at all the games. But any other ones that you want?
The Cavs they dominated pretty much. The Knicks and Pistons was pretty close for the most part, and the Knicks ended up coming back and actually winning that game. Mm-hmm. Pistons, I think, were up for quite a bit of time. I think they're going to give them a run, which is great, because then if the Pacers end up playing them in the next round, they're going to be worn out, which is a really good thing. Celtics didn't seem to have any issues. Nuggets came back and won. That was a pretty solid game. Lakers did not look good.
Nope.
Luka Doncic played well. He played well. I think he ended up scoring almost
played all right.
40,
I think. Obviously it's Luka Doncic. He's going to have great stats whenever it comes to the end of the game. But as far as, to his standard of what a good game looks for Luka, I don't think that was the best performance.
Yeah.
And then LeBron James, he kind of, like I said, same thing for him. When it comes to stats, okay, he kind of was bad. He has to,
Yeah.
But he didn't really have the best game either. They did not look like they were prepared.
They did not look good.
And I want to give credit to the Timberwolves, because the Timberwolves defensively are a sound squad.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert in the paint. He's obviously won multiple Defensive Player of the Years. He has them under his belt. You have Julius Randle, who's basically the same size as LeBron James. And although LeBron James can kind of out-physical him still, just because LeBron James is a freak, at least it's someone who, he's not going to be able to take advantage of every play.
Yeah. And then, can he do it for an entire game? That's the question now. He's getting to that age where we saw it last year in the playoffs, where he would have a strong half, then the second half he basically wasn't even there. So,
well, I think LeBron James is still capable, but when you have a Luka Doncic on your side, you want to let him kind of set up his offense and get going. But then they also have Jaden McDaniels, who was the one guarding Luka, who's 6'9". I really, I know you're going to laugh at this. I really view right now the Timberwolves kind of the same way I viewed Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Because Jaden McDaniels is kind of like a Scottie Pippen. Jaden McDaniels can finish at the rim. He is a very solid shooter when it comes to mid-range. Pretty good at threes. He's not the best at threes. But he's just a 6'9" frame that can lock up whoever's on the opposite side of the ball, along with Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards was the one that was guarding LeBron James. And, they talked about it. I don't know if you watched, but the commentators talked about the coaching staff for the Timberwolves basically playing reels for Anthony Edwards of Michael Jordan when Michael Jordan went up and played against the Celtics for the first time in the playoffs. and he was saying, like, showing how Michael Jordan, like, took it personal against Larry Bird. It was, like, in his face, talking trash the entire time, like, going right at him, busting him. And that's what Anthony Edwards is pretty much doing to LeBron James last night. He was in his face. He was grabbing on him, getting on his nerves here and there, trying to score on him relentlessly, like, trying to take no prisoners. And so that's kind of, I know last year Anthony Edwards got all the comparisons to Michael Jordan after how he played against a lot of these solid teams. Right. I mean, he took out some great teams before he met Luka with the Mavericks. But Jaden McDaniels, I think, is really slept on. I think that's going to be Anthony Edwards, Scottie Pippen. And then you have the old vet and Mike Conley, but then you also have a young dude underneath him and Dillingham that are coming up. So just a pretty solid surrounding cast, but those two right there is like MJ and Pippen to me. So we'll see what the Lakers can do.
Yeah. I think the last one to mention, it'll be interesting to see how far they get. And we've talked about it before, but the Warriors actually looked like a pretty good team.
Yeah.
And against a really good team. I mean, it's not like they were playing some scrubs.
Held Rockets, I think, to their lowest point margin in a first half all season.
Yeah. So we'll see if that continues. I mean, that's always the question when you have a kind of a veteran, older team like that. But, I mean, for the first game, they looked really good.
Yep. Is there any other teams we're missing? Let me look at my list here.
Clippers. We didn't really talk about them.
Yeah, so the Clippers and the Nuggets. I didn't watch that game.
I watched it, yeah.
It was good?
It really was. And I think Nuggets just kind of squeaked it out. They ended up winning.
Jokic is a MVP candidate for a reason, man.
Yep.
And then other than that, that's pretty much covering all of it. I mean, I did watch the Celtics and the Magic. The Magic, Banchero and Franz Wagner, they both look great, but they can't keep up with all the others when it comes to the Celtics. So I think that series is going to go fast.
Yeah.
All right. I say we get into our last little part, which I kind of told you about beforehand. So there was a segment that what's his name? Smith?
Stephen A. Smith?
Yep, Stephen A. Smith.
The guy that talks really loud and yells about everything.
Mm-hmm. LeBron James!
It's just very dramatic. Even if I think he orders stuff at McDonald's the same way. I'll take a burger and a Coke.
Give me a number one, no pickle. But no. He had this segment that I liked a lot. And the segment was like... who is the best Robins? Now, this came from a comment that Jimmy Butler had made with Steph Curry. And basically, I think the reporter asked them, like, how do you feel about the team or whatever? And he was like, well, you know, any team that I'm on, I think we have a chance to win. He was like, but with Steph Curry, any team he's on, I know we have a chance to win. And then basically he said he's the perfect Batman to my Robin. Or he's like, I'm the perfect Robin to his Batman or something like that. So he's calling Steph Curry Batman. Mm-hmm. He's calling himself Robin.
Yep.
So what I kind of wanted to do is create a list of the top 5 Robins that we have in the playoffs right now. And so we already put together a list of the Robins for each team, who we decide are the Robins for every team. And then out of those teams, we will pick the 5 best ones in our opinions. Okay? Yep. And then real quick, just to define what I think a Robin is, it's not necessarily, you know, how good you are. It's that you are the second best on your team. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, obviously we're going to be talking about the best ones that we think are. And by best, I'm not talking about like the 2K rating. I'm not talking about their skill. I'm talking about like the MVP status.
2K rating.
Yeah, I know, right? The MVP status of that team. So, for example, obviously it goes without saying, Jimmy Butler coming over, being with Steph Curry. Like, Jimmy Butler by himself, I don't think is probably even a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA. He could probably be top 10, probably cracking that. But there's a large amount of players that are better than him, and maybe even some Robins that are better than him. But his impact on the Warriors is crazy.
Right.
And so he can still be up above some other players that might actually be better statistically or whatever, but maybe don't have that much of an effect on their team. So, anyways, let's just get into the candidates first.
Yep.
Okay, so go ahead.
So OKC, we have Jalen Williams.
Jalen Williams, okay.
Cavs.
And the Batman for that team, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I'll say the Batman for the team.
The Cavaliers, we have Mobley.
And then obviously the Batman is Donovan Mitchell.
Mitchell, yep. Rockets, we have Sengun.
And then the Batman is Jalen Green.
Celtics, Brown.
And then the Batman is Jason Tatum.
Lakers, we have LeBron James.
And the Batman is Luka Doncic. That's right, Luka above LeBron James.
Somebody might disagree with that, but that's okay. Knicks, Towns.
Yep, so Karl Anthony Towns to Jalen Brunson at point guard.
Yep. Nuggets, we have Jamal Murray.
Jokic, obviously the Batman.
Pacers, Pascal Siakam.
Tyrese Halliburton, the Batman.
Clippers, James Harden.
Kawhi Leonard, the Batman.
Bucks, Lillard, Damian Lillard.
And Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Wolves, Randall.
And then Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, the Batman.
Pistons, Duran.
Yeah, so Jalen Duren, that was kind of a tough one too,
Yeah.
because it's the Pistons. They're a pretty well-rounded bunch, but there's no one like
They're a bunch.
that's like could be a star on another team status. But Jalen Duren is probably the second most impactful player on that team behind Cade Cunningham.
Warriors, we already said, and that's Jimmy Butler. He said that himself.
Yep.
Magic, Wagner.
And then Paolo Banchero is the Batman.
Grizzlies, Jackson Jr.
Yep, so Jared Jackson Jr., he's the power forward. He's a big guy. He's another scenario just like the Rockets where they're pretty well-rounded. It was between him and Desmond Bane, but obviously the Batman on that team is Ja Morant.
And then we kind of, a little bit back and forth, but Adebayo is what we said for the Robin.
Yeah.
Just because of the way Tyler Hero is playing right now,
Yeah.
we would call him the Batman.
Yep, so Tyler Hero, the Batman.
Okay, I'll go with my 5 first, and I'll go in order of what I think as far as the best in the league right now. I got to go Celtics with Brown. I have to.
At number one?
At number 1.
Oof,
Yep.
okay.
Just because he's a consistent player. I mean, and he literally helps keep that team in games. And Tatum, even though he may be struggling or something like that, Brown seems to always be consistent.
Okay.
So I got to go Brown. Number 2 is Knicks with Towns. He's a phenomenal basketball player and continues to, again, I look for consistency, and he's just a contributor in all aspects of that game, defensively and offensively as well.
Okay.
Mobley with the Cavs would be my number 3. Kind of same deal. I mean, there's not much more to say about him. He's just he's a great player. And then I have Pascal Siakam as my 4 with the Pacers. I don't know how well Halliburton would play if he didn't have Siakam to again, he's a guy that keeps him in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a hustler, and he plays well with that system, so that's why I think it works. And then I have Butler as the 5th.
Butler as the 5th.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
my 5.
Okay, so for my 5, it's going to look a lot different from yours.
Yep. I figured it would.
One factor that I wanted to take into consideration is the contribution of the other guys. Okay, so to start off, which he's kind of like my honorary 6, because it was kind of a tie between 6 and 5.
Can't do that.
But I have to mention it because it was your first. It's Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
And the only thing I would say behind that is, yes, he is a great contributor and kind of behind Jason Tatum. But I feel like if you took Jaylen Brown off of that team, the next man up, Derek White or Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday, all of them could probably put up the same numbers that Jaylen Brown could. I don't think that, his performance is spectacular as the second. I think he is just the chosen one to get those stats on a team like that as the second.
Well, White did in the first game, so we'll see if he does anything in the second game.
Yeah.
I mean, he scored 30, I think.
And then my tied one with that would be Towns, Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
He's dominant force with Jalen Brunson. I just wouldn't put him above the rest of these players on the list. Just based off of pure talent and impact. I think if you take Jalen Brunson away, could Karl Anthony Towns sustain a team on his own and have good success with it? Maybe, but I don't think so as much as the other players. Okay. So number 4, I'm going to go LeBron James next to Luka Doncic. Obviously, it's LeBron James. Obviously, it's LeBron James. Obviously, having him as your second, as your person who's focused on the rebounds, the assists, the person that's cutting to the basket. I think utility-wise, he is one of the best. Great, or as far as scoring the ball, like he needs Luka. I think LeBron James on his own, especially with that roster surrounding him, wouldn't be able to get much done. But he's a great utility player, just like another player I have on this list, and that's why he's the 4th best Robin in my opinion. Number 3, Damian Lillard. I think as we saw with that Bucks versus Pacers matchup, Giannis really can't do anything by himself. And so I think it's kind of the vice versa situation of LeBron James where, Giannis is the bigger utility player. His utility out is more important than Damian Lillard's production and scoring. But Damian Lillard is probably one of the best scorers that would be a Robin because his 3-point shooting ability is just out the park, and then he can finish in the paint. He can set up other people.
Yeah, I just couldn't put him on the list right now because we don't know what's going to happen in the. I was factoring it in the playoff scenario.
Yeah,
because we don't even know what he's going to look like when he gets out there and starts playing. But that's why I didn't put him on the list.
We know what he's looked like in the past.
Right. What he could do, yes.
It's not like all of a sudden he's going to come out there and look like a dud and just suck. You know what I'm saying? He's still going to beat Damian Lillard.
Yeah, he could. You don't know what that kind of injury does to you.
Well, I'm gonna base my future predictions off of what we've previously seen, not speculation, okay? Right. So Damian Lillard at 3. Second has to go to Jalen Williams. What he did the other night, I mean, that just goes to what I was saying before with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander only scoring 15 points. And then scoring that much, a big contributor to that was Jalen Williams. Yeah. He looks like a complete dog at wing. He plays like he's 6'9". He's only 6'5". But he finishes at the rim. He's a great shooter, great 3-point knockdown artist. He's a great defender. And I think Jalen Williams is one of the few people on this list that you could probably put him on another team by himself. And he could probably develop a Robin and lead that team himself, without a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's clearly the better person. So, yeah, he's great at number 2. And then number 1, Jimmy Buckets, man. I think, factoring this in, if I was making this list in the regular season, Jimmy Butler probably wouldn't even make the list. If he did, it'd probably be cracking top 5. But I'm looking at playoff Jimmy, okay, which he's already shown us playoff Jimmy. He already showed us in the play-in game, and he showed us the other night. Now, the other night when they took on the Rockets, it wasn't necessarily his scoring ability because Steph Curry was on fire too. And so Steph Curry really looked like that dude. But I saw instances where Jimmy Butler, we were facing I'm not a Warriors fan, but I was kind of rooting for Jimmy Butler, so I guess I'll say we. But there was instances where they were starting to hit a little bit of a cold streak, and the Rockets hit a couple of threes, and they were starting to eke their way up the ladder to get back into the game. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy Bucket starts just shutting down people defensively, like grinding it out, getting steals here and there. I mean, he was a great utility player, getting hard, tough rebounds. He had a couple of offensive rebounds. And so I factor in playoff Jimmy. And then towards the end of the game, he was the one, him and Steph Curry were going back and forth basically with sealing the game with their importance of shots. They were smacking them left and right. And so Jimmy Butler is my number 1 Robin, and it's playoff Jimmy because I think he's turning into MJ whenever it comes to the playoff series.
We'll see. See how it plays out.
Yeah.
That's really the big question.
Who's going to win it all, Isaac?
Based off the first games through, it looks like the Thunder are going to probably pull this one out.
Against the Grizzlies, though?
With the way they play like that, they're going to be very hard to beat.
I would love to see the Thunder match up with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'd be intrigued to see if they can keep that scoring up.
Could definitely happen.
I am going to go with the Cavaliers.
And they played well, too?
I think the Cavs are going to I think Donovan Mitchell is going to be the MJ this year. He's going to start having 40, 50, 60-point games.
Cavs and Thunder would actually be a fun final series.
Yeah, it would.
They seem like very similar teams to me with the way that they play their game. So it'd be fun to watch them battle it out with each other a little bit.
Yeah. Well, all right. Anything else you want to add to this?
That's it.
All right. That's all we got for you. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please remember to go out and repost. And
so nobody's done it yet.
Nope. So what is this, 3 straight now?
Yep. 3 episodes in a row.
We need to be able to mark what number we're at or something.
Yep.
So we got a marker and dry erase board over here. We're gonna keep track. Okay,
so
but go repost so that you can have your chance of winning. I don't even think it'd be much of a chance. Like, it's almost a guarantee at this point.
Repost, tag us in it.
Yeah.
And then we will send you some free apparel.
Free sweatshirt. Kay and Isaac podcast sweatshirt. I mean, it's a great deal.
Yeah, and they're great sweatshirts.
Yeah.
Extremely comfortable.
Soft.
Yep.
Looks
and you'll
good
have a little bit more time to wear it too.
Yep.
But you got, fall's coming around. You'll be fine.
Yeah, at night. People wear sweatshirts at night in the summertime.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we had.
Thanks for watching.
Peace out.